Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Tabansi, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we have a very, very serious show for you guys. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, this is going to be a very, very serious show that we're discussing today, and to be quite frank with you, I'm surprised more people aren't discussing this, given the gravity of the person that's involved. In this case, we're talking about Brett Favre, Hall of Fame football player, quarterback who used to play for the Green Bay Packers. I'm surprised because I've seen other things make headlines that were nowhere near the level that this is, and in those situations, a lot of it was speculative. In this particular case, there are actual people that were involved. There are actual lawsuits that are taking place and real allegations that have been put forward. Now, some of you guys will be asking, well, what are you talking about? Well, as you guys know, about a year or so ago, Brett Favre was embroiled in a scandal in Mississippi surrounding the misappropriation of funds that were supposed to be used to serve the underserved. And then instead, those funds were now siphoned off and redirected to do other things, some in some people's pockets, some to do private projects and things like this. And then it started raising questions. So actually, I did some research and I looked up the case. Now, it's a very long case. I'm going to read from ESPN just to give you guys a little bit of background. It's a very, very long case. I want to read a little bit of it here. It starts off with the headline, Brett Favre Mississippi welfare case explained. It then continues on. Last May, Mississippi native Brett Favre became embroiled in the largest case of public fraud in state history. The Hall of Fame quarterback was one of the original 38 defendants named in a civil lawsuit filed by Mississippi's Department of Human Services, MDHS, seeking to recoup temporary assistance for needy families funds that were diverted to the rich and powerful. A state audit found that at least $77 million in welfare funds was misspent. At the heart of the dispute between MDHS and Favre is a volleyball facility in 2019 at Favre's alma mater, the University of Southern Mississippi. Favre donated his own money and helped raise funds for the facility, and text message which have become public and legal filings as part of the civil lawsuit show he pushed state officials for funding during the time his daughter was on the team. The University Athletic Foundation received $5 million in TANF funds. It continues on. According to the state audit and the civil lawsuit, Favre was also paid $1.1 million from the TANF fund for speeches the auditor says Favre never made. He eventually paid the money back, but the auditor has demanded he also pay $228,000 in interest. Previcus, a company developing a concussion drug in which Favre was a top outside investor and stakeholder, also received TANF funds. 8 people have been indicted, 6 who have pled guilty for their involvement, including former MDHS director John Davis and Nancy New, the head of the Mississippi Community Education Center, a nonprofit through which much of the funding flowed. Favre has denied wrongdoing and has not yet been criminally charged. Last week, a judge filed a suspension order limiting pre-trial publicity until the case, which now has 47 defendants, goes to trial or is resolved. A spokesperson from Favre declined to comment. And then that article, what it did was it then took us step by step, date by date, going through text messages. It's a pretty long one. You guys can go and read it again. So I was doing some research this morning and I came across an article from Front Office Sports that brought out some stunning details in this case. And now it essentially seems that these courts are now basically trying to, get Brett Favre to release his tax information, because if you declare your funds, then people are going to be able to trace where this income came from. If you didn't declare it, then it's going to open up a whole new door of legal problems. So that's the case that that's the center of this particular show here. But as I was reading through that case, it reminded me of some comments that Shannon Sharpe made on Undisputed during his time there a few months ago, where he was discussing this very case. And at the time, Shannon Sharpe was essentially saying that Brett Favre is the lowest of low when it comes to people misappropriating funds from people that need it from your own state that you're from. So what we want to do is want to play exactly what Shannon Sharpe had to say at the time there, and then we're going to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to what Shannon Sharpe said at that time. Take a listen to that.
Shannon, how much do you think this could tarnish Brett Favre's legacy?
Well, I don't think none can tarnish it, because if you go back and look at his history when he played in the NFL, they should have tarnished it already. I talked to people that was in the room when Brett Favre went into the Hall of Fame, and nobody mentioned about text messages that he sent to that jet masseuse. Nobody mentioned anything about the addiction that he suffered from. But yet T.O., they brought up everything. Can you imagine if T.O. would have had an incidents like Brett Favre off the field? T.O. still, to this day right now, would not be in the Hall of Fame. Yet they walked right past it like Brett Favre did nothing.
That is true. I give you that.
The problem that I have with this situation, you got to be a sorry mofo to steal from the lowest of the low. Skip, Mississippi is the poorest state in our country.
It is.
Its citizens. So if they're the poorest state, Brett Favre is taken from the underserved. You made $100+ million in the NFL. And they talk about, well, he didn't know. This is what Brett Favre texted. If you were to pay me, is there any way the media can find out where it came from and how much? So if you got to ask this question, is there any way the media can find out? You already know you're doing something wrong. The mere fact that you don't want anybody to know. So you know you're doing something wrong. And Skip, he wanted to seem so philanthropic. He wanted to change the perception of the narrative. He take money for some damn volleyball arena.
Well, his
daughter played. You see what Brett Favre did for his alma mater? No, he didn't get no money came out of his pocket. He stole money from people that really needed that money.
Yep.
Man, this is embarrassing. And he's not the only one. Ted DiBiase, a former wrestler, even Marcus Dupree, a great running back at the school that you loved growing up, Oklahoma. He got money. How can you got to be really low to take from the poorest of the poor? Brett, you ain't got enough money? Okay, Skip, listen. You know you're not supposed to have this. But how about go give the damn speeches? They're paying you to give speeches, and you didn't even give the speeches. And now you won't even pay the money back. And they fired one of the guys that say he tried to recoup the money. They fired him he was a Clinton appointee. This was political.
Yeah.
Shouldn't you get the money back? Have nothing to do with politics. The man and this is what we know. Skip, when black and brown people do fraud the government, they hell bent. You get an EBT card or you get WIC or you get stuff like that, boy, they move heaven and earth to try to put you in jail for $400 little measly dollars.
Fact.
Now this man done took $1 million. Somebody got $3 million. Somebody got $400,000. And they sitting around like, well, you know, it happened and we'll see. And they're going to get more money and do it all over again.
And to your point, the Mississippi Department of Human Services had to file a civil lawsuit against Brett Favre because he had not paid back the interest he owed on the $1.1 million that he was fraudulently given for giving no speeches. Right.
And he won't even pay the 1.1 back. He won't even pay the interest on the money.
Right. It's $228,000.
I mean, you got to be really low.
Yeah.
You got to be really low. And people and politicians, you got to be really low too. To know that this money is supposed to go to the most underserved, and you take it and give it to people that's made millions or got millions or have the potential to make millions, and you're willing to do that, you're willing to let your people starve, you let your people go underserved, and Brett Favre, you took this money, ain't nothing but Skip, this is what we know.
Yeah.
If people like you, there is nothing you can do to turn them against you.
So I want to read a little bit of what this article had to say here from Front Office Sports. Essentially, this article starts off with the headline, Brett Favre refuses to release taxes in Mississippi welfare case. It continues on, Brett Favre has refused to turn over his tax returns or much else. And lawyers for the Mississippi Department of Human Services again requested a judge compel the Hall of Famer to comply with the subpoenas issued in this civil case. MDHS has propounded a total of 27 requests for production to Favre. MDHS lawyers wrote in the Monday filing, Favre has raised multiple objections to every request. The subpoenas seek texts and emails Favre exchanged with others who were part of an alleged scheme, including those indicted on state and federal charges that led to millions of misappropriated welfare funds. The tax filings requested by MDHS connect Favre to about $8 million allegedly sourced from temporary assistance for needy families, TANF funds, between 2017 and 2020. Favre has denied he knew the source of the money was from TANF funds. Favre is even amongst more than 40 civil case defendants seeking to recoup millions in the largest public corruption scandal in Mississippi history. Favre has not been charged criminally. About $5 million of TANF funds went to a volleyball center at the University of Southern Mississippi, and text allegedly shows Favre's efforts on the project. Favre's tax returns are relevant and probative to both MDHS's claims and Favre's defense, MDHS lawyers wrote. MDHS and Favre dispute whether Favre agreed to fund the construction of the volleyball facility prior to his signing a written pledge. The amounts Favre paid towards the construction of the facility were which presumably would reflect on his tax returns, are relevant to that dispute. The tax return also may contain relevant information regarding payments Favre made or received from any defendant. Favre objected to hand over those taxes, claiming the request is overly broad, unduly burdensome, and harassing according to filings. And then it continues on to say, in July 2019, text from then Mississippi Governor Phil Bryant, Favre wrote that he paid for 3/4 of the volleyball facility. The facility ultimately costs more than $6 million. So you guys can go read the rest of what that article had to say there. So here are my thoughts on this. You know, it's astounding the lack of coverage a public figure that has the stature of a Brett Favre has. Virtually no one is talking about this. Absolutely nobody. Nobody. Not even talking about it. Not even giving you updates on it. No one is discussing it. Not ESPN, not Fox. No one is talking about it. No one. And to me, that is astonishing. Do you know why? Because of all of the things that get covered on the news as it pertains to sports, of all of the frivolous topics that are brought up and events that are covered, one would think that when a serious issue like this arises, or a serious matter like this arises, at least will be discussed. But no one is saying a mumbling word. Not even Jason Whitlock, who seems to be this proponent of holiness and Christianity. Jason Whitlock recently had Brett Favre on his show. None of these questions were brought up. None of them. And to me, the question is, why isn't anybody discussing this? Why isn't anybody discussing this? A case of this magnitude, we're not even discussing it. We're not saying that you should go out there and make conclusions and say he did this or he didn't do that. No, we're just saying report on the story. No one is doing this. But let LeBron be sitting on the sideline drinking tea, or let this guy be doing that. Let there be any frivolous topic, then we're all going to sit up here and discuss it. But when serious issues like this arise, no one is talking about it. I'm very, very surprised at this. Now, some people say, oh, the reason some of those people don't talk about it is because some shows are NBA shows, but other shows are NFL shows. But in general, this is sports news. This is sports news, and no one is talking about it. Number one. Number two, did you hear the amount of money that was allegedly misappropriated? $77 million. And a number that they were attributing to Favre was around $8 million. I had to do some research before this show even started. Do you guys know that Brett Favre has a net worth of what? $100 million last time I checked. $100 million last time I checked, and you find yourself connected to a story like this? Really? Really? Is this what you're telling me? To me, it is a shame. And I think sports fans are being done a major disservice by them not being made privy on this particular issue here. Because I've seen other stories gain more attention than this particular story. I don't know why this story is not picking up. It's not making any headlines. I really don't know why. Why are we and a few other people out there the ones discussing this? To me, it's surprising. It really is, because I think more people should be talking about this. So the question I have for the audience is simply this. Number one, how do you see this thing panning out? Do you think Favre ultimately releases his tax information? Because if you release that information, there's going to be a lot of information that you're going to be able to glean from your taxes, number one. Number two, do you think that this case deserves more coverage? Do you think this case deserves more coverage? And number three, ultimately, do you think we'll begin to see bigger media platforms tackle this particular case? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. We catch you on the next show. Peace.